Good afternoon, everyone, depending where you are in the world. Welcome to the February workshop for Quirkos. What we're going to do today is take everyone through a very kind of basic overview of your first project in Quirkos, setting it up, and we're going to use some example data projects that you can download from our website to show you how you can code and analyze your qualitative data in Quirkos. So when you start Quirkos, this is the first thing you'll see. This is the file dialog, and you can see here I've actually got a list of all the recent files that I've used in Quirkos on this computer. And that means that I can just double click on any of these to load a file that I've already been working on. But when you come to this for the first time, you'll probably have a blank list here. So what I'm going to show you is how to start your first project. So you'll see on the button here on the right, there's the new project button. And if we click that, it'll come up and it will ask us, first of all, the author name. Now, this is useful because if you're doing a project which has multiple people working on it, so if you're working with your supervisors or you're working as part of a larger research team, then you can see the different work that each person in the team did and identify that by their name. So, or you can put absolutely anything in here. You can put, I've just got my initials in here. You can have something fairly longer. And you can also put in much more specific things. So you could say experimental coding. Then it would set up a particular session where everything would be logged as being done by experimental coding. And then if I want to delete that later, then it's very easy to do that. So I'm just going to put my initials back in there for now. There's also two options here. There's password protection. And if we put that on, it just asks us to put in a password twice. And let's just make sure that we don't mistype it. And that will actually encrypt the file and make sure that nobody else can read it unless they have the password to unlock the file with. I'm going to leave that off for now, as well as this other option here, structured questions. Now, this is for if you're doing a survey or some kind of research material where you have the same questions asked to each person. That might be, for example, a structured interview, or a feedback form with particular sections, or an online survey. But what we're going to do for the moment is actually just bring in sources from unstructured data, so from basically semi-structured interviews. So we're going to leave that option off as well. So now we can click on the new project, having set those settings. And when we do that, it comes up with the standard kind of dialogue asking us where we want to save that. I'm just going to go to the desktop here and going to call this example project. And now this file that you create contains all of the files, all of the data, all of your coding, the whole project in one file. So we'll have this QRK extension here, and you can actually just email that file to yourself, to other people, copy it onto a USB stick. We do recommend that you save it while you're working on the project on your local computer and not on a remote desktop drive or a service like Dropbox, just so that you have the maximum performance. Quirkos sometimes run into issues if there are lags in the network. And obviously, if the network goes down while you're working on it, it will create problems. So for that reason, it's much safer to keep it on your local computer. And remember to always back up your projects. So I'll click the Save Here button. That's created our new project, and here it is, absolutely blank as if the day it was born. So what we need to do here is put some data into it. Now you'll see we've got the screen split into two sides. On the left here, we have what was called the canvas area, and this is where we'll put the bubbles or quirks, which are the topics or sometimes called nodes in our project. And on the right, you'll see at the moment it says no source to display. That's where the text sources which we want to analyze are displayed. Now, down the bottom, you'll see click to add source, because there are no actual sources in here at the moment. there's also this little plus button on the bottom right, and we can click on that, and it pops up with these options, all the different options of how we can import files. Now we can create a new source, that's a new blank source, which we can edit in directly and write in directly. Now that's useful if we're doing notes or memos. We can also select an individual file here to bring in. We can also import data from the clipboard. So if we've copied and pasted from a different document or from a website or something like that, we can create a source directly from that data. We can also import sources from a CSV spreadsheet file. That's a very commonly used spreadsheet file which allows you to import data from an online survey platform, for example. You've also got this option here to bring in a whole folder of files at once, or just to bring in selected files from a folder where there are lots of different text files you're interested in. But I'm just going to select here, just select a file, just bring in one at a time to show you the process. And the select file button here on the top right, that allows us to choose where the file comes from. So on the desktop, I've actually downloaded the example projects, which you can get from our website, from the support page. And there are two projects here, one on the Scottish Referendum for Independence a couple of years ago, and a much smaller project, which we're going to use today because it's a little bit easier to manage, which is on people talking about what they have for breakfast. And in this example, we've got 5 different sources of text of all the different sources which are supported by Quirkos. So we've got rich text files here, text files, we've got PDF files, and we've also got Word files, docx files. So I'm going to bring in the Word file to start with. That's Simon. And you'll see here, it actually gives you a little preview of the text just to make sure that, yeah, that was the right file that I was looking for. And if you click on that, it will actually load a little bit more of it. And here we've got the option with the source title to actually change the title. At the moment, the default is just to give them a numerical number as they come in. But let's call this one Simon, since this is Simon's source. And with that import button down on the bottom right, we can bring in the text. And there you can see this in the top right. Now, actually, what I'm going to do for this screencast here is actually change the size of it. It's a little bit small and pokey there. So if you click on the settings button on the bottom left, and then you'll see general project preferences, and clicking on that allows us to change the width of the highlights column, which we'll see in a minute, which shows the coded sections of the text with the colored stripe, and also here the font size. So we can increase this to be very large or very small as we like. So let's make this a little bit bigger, just so it's a bit easier to see on the webcast, because I know the quality of these is not always wonderful. So now we've brought in one source of text. Let's bring in one more as well. Just the same process over again. Import source, select a file. I'm just going to bring in one more at this stage. Could bring in the whole folder at once. But you'll see why I'm not going to do that in a minute. And let's bring in Mabel's text here. Change this to Mabel. Import. And now you'll see this is Mabel's text here. And we've actually got tabs here. There'll be 3 tabs displayed, which you can use to click between the different sources of text in the project. When you have more sources of text than 3, because only 3 tabs will be shown at a time, you can click on this button here. This is the source browser. And this will show you a long list of all of the different sources that you've got in the project. So we've got Mabel's text up here. But what we should actually do before we start the coding is to do a little work to describe the text. Now, at the moment, we don't know anything. The computer doesn't know anything about these sources. But clicking on this top right button here brings up the source properties view. And what that allows us to do is add source properties, which we can do with either this quick add button here, the little plus, or more detailed properties and values editor, which we'll look at in a second. So for example, I could put in one here, such as age. These properties, each property needs to have a name, and then they can have any number of values assigned to them. And these can be numeric, they can be text, they can be long comments, they can be absolutely anything in here. So we'll put in, Mabel can be 42. Select OK for that. And now you'll see we have this property created called age. And we'll create one more, which is gender. and have a new value for gender, which is female. Click OK here. Right, so now we've got two properties in our project. And for Mabel, we've also got defined values for those. Now, if we click on this tab here to look at Simon, you'll see that the properties are here. So we have age and gender, but it says no values associated. Okay, so we need to define what age Simon is. So if we click on this drop-down box here, we can actually choose existing values which have already been entered. So Mabel's 42, so we can choose 42 again. But Simon's a different age, so let's change this and put in 32. And then for the gender, we use the click down button here, select new value, and put in male. That's how we can use the source properties to describe to the computer any kind of aspect, demographic or otherwise, about the sources that we've brought into the project. And you can also use the little graph here on the top right, which shows us across the whole project the different properties and how they are arranged across the project. So for example, 50% of people are 32 and 50% of them are 42. And we also have an even 50-50 male-female split here. By clicking on this cross button on the top left, we can go back to the text at any time. Great. So we've brought in some sources of data to the project. It's very easy to do that. And we've described those sources in a way that's very important, as we'll see in a minute. But now what we want to do is actually create a framework which we can use to code this. So let's talk here about bread. So if I click on this plus button here, we can create a new bubble, which will be randomly appear somewhere on the canvas. Let's put it here with a random color, which is blue this time. And we'll make this bread. Now, there's a space here for a longer description. So if we want to describe exactly what we mean by something that's probably not quite as clear cut as bread, we can enter that here. And we can also click on this bar here to change the color. So there's lots of different colors that we can choose here and different darknesses, etc., etc. I'm just going to go for a straight up sort of brown color here for bread, I think. And we'll click on the save button on the bottom left. And now we've got this bubble here, which is called bread. And by clicking and dragging on it, we can move that anywhere in the canvas area. Now, this represents one of the topics or nodes that we're interested in. And if we wanted to add some text to that, all we have to do is select a relevant piece of text here. So this person's saying, I did try the gluten-free bread. It's always soggy and not cheap either, so I gave up pretty quickly. Okay, that's talking about bread. So I can click and drag to select a piece of text, and then click anywhere inside the selected text and drag and drop that onto the bread bubble. Now, when you do that, you'll see two things have happened. So first of all, this has now become colored in brown. So that represents bread. And if you hold your mouse over the highlight there, you can see in the bottom left corner of the screen down here what that text represents. And you can also notice that the bubble got bigger. Now this means that the canvas area, when it's fully populated, will show you a kind of relative overview of how many pieces of coded text you've added to each of your topics. That way you can see what things are emerging. So are we talking about bread a lot? Are we talking about juice a lot? Whatever's interesting in your project. Now I can click on the plus button here and let's create another one. So someone is actually talking about juice here. So let's put in one for juice. I guess there's a fine color for that. Here's someone saying, I'm not a big fan of juice or anything. So we can drag and drop that onto the juice bubble. And there you see that's grown to be the same size. Now, what if we want to have a little bit more nuance here? Let's add one more quirk in a slightly different way. Actually, by right-clicking anywhere in this area, I can create a new quirk at that exact point. So let's run for negative. And now this piece of text, which is still highlighted, we can drag and drop onto negative as well. So this is a person saying something negative about juice. Now you'll see that there are now two stripes here. So this means that we can do concurrent coding. We can code one piece of text as being about as many different topics as we like. And that's another important way about how Quirkos helps you analyze and explore the text. So if we were to double click on any of these bubbles now, so let's take bread, for example, this will show us all of the text which we have highlighted with bread, and that's only this one at the moment. Now you'll see here there's these little ... bubbles. Actually, we've coded a whole sentence here, but if we wanted to see a little bit more context around that, we can actually load more and more of the detail around that to read more of that text source. And at any time, if we're lost, you can click on the home button to go back to the main view. Now, what we can do is a little bit of coding across the other sources here. So this person's also talking about bread. So let's add that here as well. And hopefully you can see how it's quite quick to just select a piece of text, add it onto these bubbles, and watch your data grow. Now, we can also have subcategories here. So for example, here you'll see someone was talking about gluten-free bread before, but here they're actually talking about wholemeal and brown bread and white bread. So why don't we have subcategories here under bread for different things? So I'm going to right click here and create a new quirk, which is wholemeal. We'll give this a different shade of brown, I suppose. Yeah, that'll do. Not a very different shade of brown, but we can actually right click on any of these bubbles anytime, choose quirk properties here, and then change any of the aspects. So let's make that a much darker color so that stands out. Okay, that's better. Now to create subcategories, all we have to do is drag and drop that onto the bubble that we want to be the parent. So we want wholemeal to be a subcategory of bread. We drag the wholemeal bubble onto bread. If we change our mind, well, we've always got the undo and redo buttons here on the left and right, but we can also just pull out the bubble here from bread, and it's now its own category again. We can also create, so one for white bread here, I guess that white. And now when this says, sometimes I spoil them with white bread, we can drag and drop that onto white. And we eat wholemeal bread most of the time. We can drag and drop that onto wholemeal. So now we've got text, as you can see here, which is about white bread, wholemeal bread, and stuff that's about bread in general. And if we double click on bread, we can actually see now this hierarchy of our different nodes that we've created with wholemeal ones, with white ones. We've got all these different kinds of bread. So what we might want to do is show you some of the other ways that you can look at this canvas. So we've actually zoomed in here. This little slider here at the bottom lets you zoom in and out of the canvas. So if you've got lots of different code, lots of different bubbles, that can help you zoom in and out. But let's see if we can't find someone else talking about juice. And I'll show you another way in which you can code that makes things a little bit quicker, and that's with the keyword search. So if at any time you press this little magnifying glass here, that's the keyword search. We can put in a search term here, like juice. And if we put in juice, that's the only time that someone's talking about juice in this project. I wonder if we talk, anyone else is talking about bread. That's everything that we've got so far. But for example, this way, let's see what else we've got here. Maybe there's cereal. Yeah, that's a good one. So if we've put something in here, cereal, okay, that's good. That's given us an example across Simon and across Mabel of different places where the word cereal comes up. And again, we can click on these ... buttons and load more of the text around it. So we've got this cereal bubble here, but wait, actually, we don't have a cereal bubble. But what we can do is we can actually code directly from the search results. We can actually create a new code directly from a piece of text. If we drag and drop this not onto one of the existing bubbles, but onto the plus button here on the top right, this will create a new bubble. It's appeared there in a random place in the bottom corner, which has got cereal, this little piece of text that we added to it. So here's another bit of cereal. Most of the time my cereal ends up forgotten and soggy. And we'll drag that also onto that cereal bubble. But at the moment, this just says untitled because there was no indication of what this topic was about. So we can right click on it again, select Quirk properties as we did before, and make this serial. Like that, that's fine, I suppose. So as I showed you before, you can code directly from the serial. Sorry, directly from the search results onto the serial bubble, just like that. And this means that using these search options here, you've got a very quick way of finding bits of text. Now, there's also some other options here. For example, you can choose only to see whole words. So if we put in, for example, real here, we'll actually get serial come up here because that contains the letters for real. If you wanted to stop that happening, you choose whole words only, and then that will only come back with real and not serial. You can also have alternatives such as ed, ing, s, plurals, alternative endings. You can also make your search only go in coded text, so only appears in text already coded. And you can also put on here the synonym database. So for example, for real, it comes up with these other words: actual, existent, genuine, literal, material, rattling. And so here you can actually choose which ones are relevant. So actual, existent, genuine, those are good. Literal, material, rattling, no, those are not right. Real number, that's not right. Really substantial, yes. So by just turning on these little sliders here, you can search specifically for those words. There's also other ways that you can refine the results here. So for example, you could look at people, results that only come from women, and you could look at results that only come from men. So that's one of the reasons that we put those properties in there. We can also do work done by a particular person, or things that just appear under a particular category. Lots of different options there. But the search results is a very powerful way to help you find keywords in that. And what we can do here is it's actually probably easier at this stage if we jump to a project that's already been coded. And that way I can show you how we would work with a project once we've been through and done all the coding. Now, obviously in Quirkos, as in all the other software, it's still a manual process to go through and do the coding. It doesn't know what you're interested in finding from the data. So it can be quite a long process. So I'm not going to go through that now, as this would take quite a while to go through, even this small project. But here I've actually got, and you can also download from the website, a fully coded example project using these sources. So this is the same data here again. I'm just going to make the text bigger again so we can see that. But this time, the project has been fully coded using actually slightly different topics than we chose. So we don't have bread here, but we have toast and tea. And here you can see with all these pretty coding stripes here, we've now got lots of text, which has been coded in lots of different ways with overlapping things. So here's something which is about yogurt, which is about fruit, and adults. So my wife has yogurt usually with fruit. So that's a piece of text which has been ascribed to all three of those different things. Now, if we go here to the bubbles, you can see here we've created some nested categories here for different family members and for different things that people eat for breakfast or drink for breakfast. We've created some categories there. And here, if we open this source browser here we've got lots of different sources of text. And these have all been coded. And these are all these examples you can download and work with yourself from the website. It's a bit of a silly project, but it's easy to understand for this kind of purpose. So now we've done all the coding, how can Quirkos help us explore that data and see what's in there and what kind of connections are going on? Well, one of the first things that we can do is to look to see what things have been coded together, what's been coded concurrently. So for example, let's look at this option dislike. I'm kind of interested to see what things people dislike. Now, if I double click on dislike, that will show me the text, and that will show me every time someone has said, we've coded a piece of text about being disliked. But I wonder if there's some kind of pattern. So if we click on the home button to go back, right click on the dislike and then choose show overlap view, the second option here. Now this shows us a cluster view where the bubbles which are closest to dislike, it's almost like a Venn diagram, are the ones which have the most overlapping codes. So here we can see we've got 2 pieces of text that overlap with fruit, 2 pieces of text that overlap with juice. Now the question is, where are those? So if we click on those, we can actually see those pieces of text. And these fruit and juice are the ones which appear most often with dislike. So that might imply that from this study, people dislike fruit, they dislike juice. Okay, that's pretty strange, but maybe that's the case. But if we go to this outside view here, the further out we go, there's only one kind of overlap here, dislike and children, what children dislike, and nothing here for dislike of yogurt. But all these examples are actually updating in real time. So if we click here and say, well, this is about my partner, so this should probably also be about adults or something like that. We add that to adults here. Oh, it's already in adults. Maybe it's about grandparents. You'll see now grandparents has gone closer to the center. So this shows us some of the emerging findings in the data. That's the cluster view, the overlap view. And you can right-click on any of these. So let's right-click on diet. And diet and healthy are the things that occur most often together. That's probably not surprising. So we'll click on the home button to go back to that main screen. Now, let's use those source properties which we defined earlier to explore the data and see if there's any kind of demographic details. And how we would do that is with this button here, the query view. Now, if we click on the query view here, this gives us a whole bunch of options at the top about what we want to filter for in the text. So we've got lots of options here for property, highlight author, quirk author, highlight date, quirk level, all these different things which are in the project. Choose the properties. These are the source properties. And automatically here, we've got everything which has been put in. We actually have city in here as well, which is interesting. Let's keep gender for the moment. Gender equals male, and click on the Run Query button on the right here. Now, that's shown us everything which the men have been coded as saying in the project. So if we click on diet, we've got stuff which Simon said and Mubarak, so there's 2 men in the project, everything that the men said. And we can see that diet is the thing which men have been coded as talking about most often, then healthy eating, then things they dislike, then time, then coffee, etc., etc. And these are all the different bubbles we've got in the project. But what's also useful is this comparison view here. So if you click on this button on the left, it splits the screen in half again. And now we can form a separate query on the right and see how that compares to the query on the left. So if we've got gender equals male on the left, let's choose gender equals female on the right, run query to update that. And now we've got on the right all the responses from the women, and on the left all the response from the men. And straight away we can see with the sizes of the bubbles and the text here that there are more pieces of text coded as being about dieting from the men than there are from the women. And for some reason, women are talking about toast a lot more than the men are. So this might be backing up your theory which you were looking to investigate in this project, but it's kind of an interesting way to explore the data. And you can also make these queries more vague or more precise by adding additional parameters here. So now at the moment we just have gender equals male on the left. We can also add an additional property here where, for example, because there are numerical ones here, so age is greater than 42, or maybe we'll choose a low value, 22. See if anyone fits in. Oh, sorry, that's below, so choose over 22. So we can also put men from a particular age range and compare that with women from a particular age range or a different age range. And you can keep adding different things here. So people from a different city or work that was done by a particular person. So you can compare different work done by different people. There's lots of options in this query view to explore. So have a play around with your data and see what interesting things you can find out. Click on the home button again, go back to the main view here. And I'm just going to show you some of the other ways now that we can sort all these bubbles. So now at the moment, we've not got very many in this project, but we might say this is a bit messy, how we've kind of organized these on the screen. We can actually have them arranged in alphabetical order. So we've got B, D, F, H, L, T. We can also have it by size order with the descending. So let's have that the other way around. So healthy's got the most on it, in descending order of size. We can also have an alternative view here, which is the tree view. Now, this is a more kind of traditional tree hierarchy view that you'll see in other software packages. And again, this works in the same way. You can code on here if you want to, and right-click to change any of these different properties which are in here. But that's much more useful if you've got hundreds, dozens, or hundreds of different codes here. The bubble view can sometimes be more kind of easy to get going with, a bit complicated when you've got hundreds of different sources. But let's also note that you can create these categories here, and that will help you order your bubbles and also help you save some space on the canvas as well. So what happens when the time comes to share the results of our project with other people? Well, you might have noticed this button here, which is for report. And if we click on generate a report, this will click on where in the background and generate a whole bunch of images of the canvas and all our different data that we can put into other packages. So for example, if we're writing a report in Word or PowerPoint presentation or something like that, we've got this report view here, which allows us to get a lot of information about the report. So when this report was generated, the file, how long the source is and characters, who brought that in. So there's different authors in this project. We can see there's Daniel and there's someone with the initials JSL. And we can also see here overviews of the age and gender. We can also see, we've not defined someone's gender in here. We've also got these canvas views here. In fact, there's a lot of different options for different things that we could have in this report that we generate. And these can all be changed with these tick box options on the right column. So the left is a preview of what the report will look like, and the right is all the different options and sections we can have. So if we didn't want this little bit here saying when the report was generated, we just untick the report info here and that disappears. We don't want this sources summary either as well, so let's get rid of that. We've also got here the property summary. Maybe I don't want that either. Or maybe we want to include some of those cluster views, those overlap views showing the connections between healthy and like. So let's put those in, for example. So lots of different ways that we can customize how the report looks. You've also, of course, here with all of these images, actually there's a lot of them, let's turn that off. We've actually got the text here. So these are the quotes, and you can see here the color-coded stripe, the name, grandparents, comes under the category family and grandparents. And we can also change how that's viewed. So we can also have everything, for example, that a particular person said, here's everything that Sarah said from all the different tools. And we can maybe have a little bit more information. So who did that coding and what percentage coverage that represents of the source. So lots of options here to customize, and even how they look. If you want different colors highlighted in different ways, you can have that as well. Maybe we want the properties in there as well, so we can see what age people are from each quote. And when we've chosen how we want that to look, we can press a button here to print it. We can save it as a HTML file. It's basically a website that you can send to people, and they can do this same kind of interactive exploration of the data and choosing what bits they want to look at. And you can also create a PDF, which will create a kind of static version of that. So we'll quickly generate report PDF. I think it should pop up. Oh, it's come on the other screen. Apologies, here it is. With those sections that we wanted to have in the report. So again, that's another easy way to print or send that out to someone. We'll just close the report generation here. Now, there's some other ways that we can export the data. We can export here, see CSV files, and that will create a spreadsheet, which we can put into Excel or SPSS to do more statistical analysis to generate graphs from our data. But there's also the option here to export as a Word document. You can either have a series of Word documents, one for each source that you brought into project, or you can put them all into one. And when you do that, again, we'll call this Word report. I'm on the other screen again. So this was something like how the output will look. We have these kind of coded highlights, which show us, allow us to export the text, print it out with these color-coded highlights, just as how we had it in the software. So this is useful to share our coded data. You can see who did the coding and what the theme was. It says that one's toast, that's about friends. You can share this with anyone who's got any word processing software, so Word or LibreOffice, OpenOffice, Google Docs. So that's a nice convenience. And also, if you want to go back and have a paper copy to read through, you can do that and also see all of the coding and highlighting that you've done. So that's a basic overview of the main kind of features. Thanks for dropping by today. If you've got any questions, you can always ask in our forum on our website, or drop us an email. There's a free trial which you can download, and you'll get a month to try the software, see what you think. And so do let us know if you have any feedback, any questions. If you get stuck at any time, you'll find on our website a whole bunch of other useful sources here. So I'll show you quickly some of the other support options. So here, if we go to the main website here, you'll see even on the front page, we've got some overview videos. But if you go here to the support page here, you can download manuals. So there's a brief overview manual. There's a full manual, which is much more detailed. Here's the link to the workshop materials that we've used in this video. So there's the example project about breakfast, also the example project about the Scottish referendum. We've got lots of video tutorials as well, different lengths. There's one which is 5 minutes, 20 minutes, there's one which is an hour. There's also bit guides, which are 1-minute guides to give you an overview. And all the workshops, including this one, are also available on our YouTube channel. There's also a list of frequently asked questions here. So that will give you lots of kind of commonly asked questions about how the software works and how it can be used. We've also got some teaching slides here as well. If you prefer to actually learn by looking at PowerPoint presentations because they're very visual, or if you wanted to be teaching Quirkos in a class, then you can actually use and edit these slides here, which show you, how to do particular tasks in the software. So you can use these for any purpose to learn or to teach others and edit them however you like. They're all in the Creative Commons license. So I hope that's been useful today. As I said, do follow on and find some of the other sources if you get stuck, or drop us a call or give us an email. Thanks for coming along today, and hope Quirkos helps your qualitative analysis.